All right, so you're welcome back to another edition of our class on the lesson notes. And of course, when we look at some of those videos we have been doing here, these are the video that has to do with classroom instruction, something that will bring about transformation in Nigerian classroom. And of course, this video as well is also going to be another video on what will bring transformation in Nigerian classroom. So this is a continuation of the last video. Of course, this one is understanding each component and how to use them effectively. That is the lesson notes as a tools that teachers use. So we are just like you as a teacher, maybe you are seeking to strengthen your classroom planning skill or you want to deliver more powerful lesson, this video is going to be an important video for you as it's going to explain how what you need to put in each of the content because there are some schools and there are also some institutions that have already give an outline or outline some components that you are to use for your lesson note template. So your ability to put the right thing there matter most, and it will definitely make your class an engaging one. So whether you are a student teacher or you just joined the teaching profession as a nation builder or an experienced teacher that you are even looking for a way to refresh your skill, of course, this video is also for you because it's a clear structure and easy to understand approach on how to prepare your lesson notes. So what do you stand to gain in this class? Firstly, we'll tell you the meanings of lesson notes. Why is this central to effective teaching? Then we also explain each of the components, right from the objective, the instructional objective, the previous knowledge that we call entry behavior, your instructional material, the content, the method you have to use, the evaluation process, and as well how to write each of the components correctly and even professionally. Yeah, because many people have been writing, there's a lot of misconception here and there. Oh, under this, what do we have this? Is it going to be by the end of the lesson? Is it going to be at the end of the lesson? At what point do you use at the end of the lesson? At what point do you use by the end of the lesson? So these are what this video is going to be telling you. And of course, it's also going to explain some well-structured lesson notes to improve the flow. A lesson note sometimes should be student-centered, not always you have everything about the first step, activity one, teacher, activity two, teacher, activity three, teacher. So we also get some practical tips for aligning lesson notes with curriculum standard and 21st century teaching expectation. So whether you are a student or a teacher in training, either at College of Education or University of Education, or in a conventional university, you find yourself in Faculty of Education. So this video will definitely be important for you. Like I said in the last video, we talk about some of those things we want to look at, and then we've already explained what lesson note is all about in the previous video. So if you are joining us for the first time, you can go and watch the video before this, where we have defined what lesson note is all about, why is lesson note important. We've also explained, because there's a lot of misconception that, oh, if you master your content, you don't need lesson notes. You can go into the class since you master your content and you know what to teach. Of course, you are right, but there is a general saying that says if you fail to plan, that means you are planning to fail. So as a teacher, you need to plan ahead. And the roadmap you need to move in your class, to navigate in that class, is the lesson plan. It is when you have a well-planned lesson note, that is when you can deliver an highly impactful lesson in the class. So I'll be talking about some of the key things that we have in the lesson notes, the items, and what we were expected to put there as a teacher. So the first thing I will talk about is, like I've said, there is a template designed by the premier and preferred university of education in the country. That is Taisholani University of Education for the students that are on teaching practice. And I'm just going to use that one to explain some of the content that we have on it. So let's take, for instance, inside that place, there is a part we call part 1, which is the teachers and lesson information. I'll quickly explain that. The first thing there is the name of the student teacher. You as a student teacher or as a teacher, you are expected to write your name in full. And of course, that don't forget that when you want to write your name, the standard way to write your name is to write your first name first and your last name will come back. So for instance, now when you see me putting Kayode Adewale, Kayode is my first name and Adewale is my last name. So on my lesson notes or on my notes, you see Kayode Adewale. So the next thing is your identity, your school identity. It could be school registration number, or it could also be matriculation number. So which is used for official documentation, so that whosoever that is coming will be able to know that, oh, this person is known with this identity. So the next thing there is your teaching practice week. There is difference between teaching practice week and week of the term. For the teaching practice week is actually for the week you will be staying in that school. So if you are staying in the school for 10 weeks, so you definitely know that the very first day you get into the school is the first week. The following week will be second week. The following week will be third week, like that. So it's also going to help to track your progress and your stay in that particular school. Then the next one is the week of the term. Of course, in Nigerian context, we normally use the minimum of 13 weeks and maximum of 15 weeks. Depends on the academic calendar. So the very first week is always be revision and then the welcome test and the like. So the week, whatever week they are doing in that school, that is what we are expected to put in that place. So indicate which week the school term is currently in, or ensure alignment with your school scheme of work as it is in the scheme of work. So the next item there is class, the classes, and that is the class we are teaching. Whether you are teaching GSS1, in some school, they can say their GSS1 is grade 7. They may want to use the Western standard. Say the school, their GSS1 is grade 7. Or they may say their GSS1 is basic 7 if they want to go by the UBEC standard. So it's also going to determine the age level and the instructional approach as well. Some institutions, require, talking about the average age of the student. So if they require the average age of the student, it's just a matter of finding the average age of the student in the class and put it there. If you have 20 students in the class, get their age and find the average, which is the mean. And whatever it gives you, that is the average age of the student in your class. Then the next one is the subject. The subject is what you are going to do because it's going to determine the content structure. So the next thing there is topic. The topic is the broad content theme for the lesson. What exactly is your lesson all about? Is it about fraction in mathematics? Is it about color in creative art? Is it about part of speech in English class? So whatever topic you are going to put here must align with the scheme of work. The next one is subtopic. There are some topics that are so broad to the extent that you can't take them once. So for instance, in mathematics now, if I'm taking fraction, there are meanings of fraction. There are different types of fraction. There are operations involved in fraction, maybe addition of fraction, subtraction of fraction, multiplication of fraction. All those are subtopics under fraction. So once you have your topic, you need to have your subtopic, and it's going to serve as a guide lesson depth. So the next thing is time of the lesson. Like in the previous video, I tried to explain the difference between time of lesson and duration of lesson. The time of lesson is the scheduled period. For instance, now in Nigerian context, the average time is 40 minutes. And when in a standard school, they start by 8 a.m. So that means the first period will start between 8 a.m. and 8:40 a.m. The second period will start between 8:40 a.m. and 9:20 a.m. So that is 8:40 to 9:20 is the second period. And that is the time of the lesson. It is also the period. Why the duration, which is the 10th item, is talking about the duration of the lesson is talking about when the amount of time you are spending in that class and the time of the lesson will determine the duration. If the time of the lesson says 8 to 8:40, you know that the duration of the lesson is 40 minutes. And of course, another thing that is important in your lesson note is when the lesson will be delivered. That is the date. That is the date. For instance, now, today is 26th. I'm doing this video on the 26th of November 2025, which is Wednesday. So if I want to put that one, it's going to be Wednesday, 26th of November 2025. So for everyone to see when you want to deliver your lesson plan. Then we move to the part B of the lesson plan, which is the pre-instruction component. Inside the pre-instruction component, the first thing you have to do there is the entry behavior. The entry behavior, which some scholars call it previous knowledge. They talk about the previous knowledge. That is what students already know that link to the present class. What the student already know that link to the present class. For instance, now, if I'm taking fraction now, the similar things or the entry behaviors I can use it. I can say, okay, students have been sharing things among themselves. And of course, there's no children that have not been sharing things among themselves. Probably they might have been sharing things among their assemblies. When they buy biscuits, they will share among their assemblies. Oh, they may say, oh, this is the eldest person. You take 4 out of the 10. You take 3 out of the 10. You take 2 out of the 10. And that is 3 plus 4. That is 7 plus 2. That is 9. And the youngest one will take 1. So they have been sharing. You can now tell them that, okay, what you have just done is you are sharing that thing in that proportion. That means 4 out of, somebody took 4 out of 10. Someone took 3 out of 10. Someone take 2 out of 10. And somebody take 1 out of 10. And that is a fraction. So in that respect, you can now say that is an entry behavior. You can now say today, our class will be talking about fraction. So what you have just done is the entry behavior or the previous knowledge, because the students have been familiar with what they have already been sharing things among themselves. And there are some language you don't use in entry behavior. You don't say students are familiar. How do you know they were familiar? So just use an emphatic statement. Okay, students have been sharing. You know that they have been sharing. So in your introduction, that is the very first thing you have to ask the student, that how many of you have been sharing things with your assemblies, and how do you share things with your assemblies? So likewise, if you go into the areas of creative art, you can talk about maybe you talk about color. You can say students have been, the students have been seeing traffic lights, and you can tell them how many of you have seen traffic light before. Hey, sir, me, sir. Okay, in that traffic light, which color did you use to see on the traffic light? Yellow, green, red. Okay, so what does that yellow mean? What does that red mean? So it means they have been familiar. So that is an entry behaviors into that class. So the next thing there is the instructional objective, which is the statement of measurable learning outcome. That is exactly what the teacher tends to achieve at the end of that class. It could be cognitive, which is the knowledge or skill. It could be affective, which is attitude, or in the areas of appreciation. It could be in the areas of psychomotor domain, which has to do with skill or doing or manipulation. So whatever is going to be your instructional objective must begin with an action verb. Maybe you say, by the end of the lesson, the student explain. By the end of the lesson, the student identify. By the end of the lesson, the student solve. It must begin with an action verb. So from there, we'll move on to instructional material. And those are the teaching aids you use to enhance your learning. Different things, anything you know that can support the learning, that is teaching aid. And when you want to put it there, it's not that you just say, okay, I want to use a bottle top. I just say, under the instructional material, I just say bottle top, fraction chart. You must tell us what you want to do with the fraction chart. You must tell us what you want to do with the bottle top. Okay, a fraction chart will be used during the lesson. A bottle top will be used as a counters or material to count in the class. So you must tell us what you want to do. If you talk about board diagram, what do you want to do with the board diagram? What do you want to do with the flashcard? It's not that you just tell us flashcard. A flashcard will be used during the class to explain different types of color. A flashcard that contains a fraction will be used during the class. That is what instructional material is all about. The last one is references. No one is an island of knowledge. Whatever you want to do, you must make a reference to one particular material you use. It could be textbook, it could be curriculum development, it could be a website you use for lesson preparation. Whatever you use for the lesson, in preparing that lesson, you have to state it there. So, and a reference, there are different formats to reference a book. You can use the American Psychology Association upper format, upper 7. So when you want to reference, the reference will start with the name of the first author, the name of the author, followed by the year, followed by the title, followed by the publisher, followed by where the book is being published. And that is when whosoever that lay their hands on your lesson, they will know that, oh, this person has actually make use of this textbook to prepare this lesson plan. So the next thing there is content. The content and the procedure. So what is content? What is content? Content, that is the main point to be taught. And the main point to be taught must go in line with the instructional objective. The main point to be taught must go in line with the instructional objective. Of course, don't forget that your instructional objective is what the teacher tends to achieve at the end of the class. So whatever you tend to achieve at the end of the class is what will contain in your content. And it should match the either topic or the subtopic. So if in your objective you have said, okay, the student should be able to, by the end of the lesson, the student should be able to explain fraction, identify different types of fraction, add two fractions together, find the difference between fractions. So in your content too, you must start with meanings of fraction, types of fraction, operations involved in fraction. And in that sequence of your instructional objective, that is what your content will go along with. So the next thing is the procedure section. The procedure section is what we refer to as the step. But before your step, there is something you need to do, which is the introduction. And the introduction is the first thing you have to do in your introduction is the entry behavior. That is your previous knowledge. That entry behavior you said you want to bring into the class, that is where you have to start with your introduction. Don't forget that you said your entry behavior is that students have been sharing things among themselves. So your introduction will be, the teacher will ask the student how they have been sharing things with their assemblies. You cannot ask them, how many of you have been sharing things with your assemblies? You see different hands up. They will tell you, yeah, there was a day I shared things with my younger brother. There was a day that I shared things with my assemblies. We bought an orange and we divided it into 3. My uncle took 2 out of the 3 and I take 1. Oh, that 2 that person took, that means the person take 2 out of 3 and you take 1 out of what? Out of 3. So with what the way you are introducing that class, you cannot tell them that today we want to work on fraction. So you use the entry behavior to stimulate the interest of the student. So your introduction should link your entry behavior to the new content. And it can also involve questioning or demonstration, just like I've said. And the next thing is that you move into your steps. So the first step is that you have to, let me just say, the bodies of the lesson notes is using the guided discovery, the questioning, the explanation, the demonstration, the learner's activity. And all these are those things that should involve in your steps. So I'm going to give you an example. I'm going to pick a topic and I'll tell you what will contain in each of them. So the next one is evaluation. Likewise, your evaluation is to know if you have achieved what you put in your stated objective. So your evaluation too must go in line with your instructional objective. So if you have said by the end of the lesson, the student should be able to identify different types of what? Fraction. So in your evaluation now, you are going to say the teacher will evaluate the lesson by asking the following question. And number one question is the meaning of fraction. Number two question is different types of fraction. Number three question is add two fractions together. Find difference between two fractions. Because those are those things that you put in your entry behavior. So evaluation is just to attest, just to confirm if what you put in your instructional behavior are being achieved. So it should match your instructional objective. So once you are done with that, then you move on to your assignment. The assignment is a reinforcement task to be completed after the class, not something you give them in the class. You can now say, okay, assignment now, the student will be asked to, to observe a sharing process in their home. They can ask, okay, when you are coming tomorrow, you are going to come and tell me how you share things with your siblings at home. They can now say, yesterday, they will put it in there. So the following class, they will now be talking about, yesterday, I share when we got home, we bought a biscuit and I shared the biscuit with my siblings. Oh, when we are going home yesterday, we saw the traffic light. So you can say they should observe a traffic light and tell you and record the observation. That is an assignment. An assignment should be something they will do at home, a reinforcement task to be completed after the class. It is not something they will come and be doing in the school. That's an assignment. So let's take, for instance, now maybe you tell them that, okay, some of you that said you have been seeing traffic light before, observe and record what happened when you see a traffic light. The following day now, they will now be telling the observation is that, oh, when we got there, we met the red light on and every car stopped. And immediately after the red light, we saw the yellow light. And immediately after that, the green light come up and everybody started moving. So it should be a reinforcement task to be completed after the class. So the last thing there is the student teachers remark. At this point, you are to, is a reflection on the lesson note. You are not to put something much there. It's just that what worked in your class, while you are delivering the class, how did you see the class? Did you achieve what you tend to achieve? What challenges did you face? Did the learner participate actively in that class? And that is what the student teacher remark is all about. So let's see a very typical one on fraction. And of course, I know this one will be useful for science students. I know this will be useful for science students. Please, those people that are joining me here, let me know if you can hear me clearly. If you can hear me clearly, let me know in the comment section. And if you are joining us for the first time, try to subscribe to this channel. Also, make sure you share this content with your colleagues, with those in the teaching profession that you think this video will be of help to. Also, try to, if you are coming here for the first time, you can also like this video and also make sure you share the video with others. Please, if you can hear me clearly, can you type yes in the comment section? Okay, thank you. So let me quickly see an example of a lesson plan. Let's show an example of a lesson plan. So I quickly want to run you through an examples of a lesson plan, and I'll be using fraction for GSS1 students. So, of course, I've told you the first thing to do is the name of the teacher. You have to put your name and let the name be in form of your first name and the last name, followed by your identity, either matric number or registration number, followed by the TP week. For instance, now, let's say my TP week is, we are spending the 3rd week in the school. But in the scheme of work of the school, the week of the term, they were on 5th week. So you will now see that your TP week will be different from your the week of the term. So the next one is the class. The class I'm dealing with is what? Is GSS1, which is grade 7. And my subject is mathematics. My topic is fraction. My subtopic is meaning and types of fraction. So I'm dealing with meaning and types of fraction. So what time of the lesson am I taking this? The time of the lesson I'm using 10 to 10:40. So what will be the 10 to 10:40? What period is that? Great. 10 to 10:40. Great. That is going to be the fourth period. Because the first period is what? 8 to 8:40. 8:40 to 9:20. 9:20 to 10. And 10 to what? To 10:40. 8 to 8:40. That's the first period. 8:40 to 9:20. Okay. The third period is 9:20 to what? To 10. And the fourth period, after going to the break, after going for the short break, they will come back and do the fourth period, which should be between 10:10 to 10:50. So my times of lesson is 10:10 to 10:50, which is the fifth period. Is that taken? Sorry, which is the fourth period. Thank you for the correction. That which is the fourth period. Then the duration of my lesson, since it's taking place between 10:10 to 10:50, the duration of my lesson is just 40 minutes. And today's date, I'm planning the lesson to deliver my lesson on Wednesday, 26th November 2025. So that is the date I'm going to put on the lesson plan. So now my entry behavior or the previous knowledge, I can say student can identify whole parts, student can identify whole number, and have previously learned division of objects into equal parts. So that means I'm sure that in my previous class, I have taught them division of objects into equal parts, which is going to serve as my entry behavior. Okay, so now I'm going to move to my instructional objective now. My instructional objective, by the end of the lesson, the student should be able to, don't forget, my topic is on meaning and my subtopic is on meaning and types of fraction. So by the end of the lesson, students should be able to, one, define a fraction as part of a whole number. That is cognitive. Two, identify and classify fraction as proper, improper, and mixed fraction. That is also cognitive. Three, demonstrate representation of a fraction using object or diagram. So that means at that particular moment now, I might have come into the class with an orange, and I will divide the orange into what? Into 3. So I have demonstrated representation of fraction using orange as an object, and I will divide it before them. I can say, okay, I can divide it into 5 and say, okay, you take 2, you take 1, you take 1, you take 1. So I divide it for 3 people. Somebody took 2, another person take 1, another person take 1, another person take 1. So I divide it between 4 people. So that person that took 2, that is taking 2 out of what? 5. So that is a demonstration of the fraction. Then I can also say, okay, show willingness to participate in the group fraction activity. So I can bring the orange. The orange could be like 4 and divide it into group and say, you share this orange, divide this orange into 10 and share it among yourself. I can even say, okay, use the size of shoe to divide that. You know, there are some robot in the class. This one, his shoe size is size 15, size 20. Okay, it's going to take the highest. So something like that. So that is the instructional objective. Now, don't forget that this my instructional objective will stay. I'm going to make use of this instructional objective in 3 places. I will use it preparing my content, and it is the same instructional objective I've also used to do my evaluation. So meaning that those people that are checking you, they really know what they are doing. When you say your instructional objective is that you want to define a fraction, and in your content, you go and start with types of fraction. You did not put the meanings of fraction. That person will be doing that. Hey, this person did not know what you are doing. And during your evaluation now, you go and bring in another thing entirely that is different. Maybe you go and copy something from the textbook. As student will do this one as classwork in your evaluation, and it's not tally with this. So your instructional objective is working with 3 things. It's going to work with your content, and it's going to work with your evaluation. So the next thing now is instructional material. I've explained the instructional material there. You have to tell us the kind of instructional material you want to use to support your class. For instance, I can talk about fraction chart. If I say fraction chart, it's not that I will just say instructional material and I'll say fraction chart. I have to put in the lesson note how I'm going to use that fraction chart. A fraction chart will be shown to students during the class. A fraction chart will be shown to the student during the class. I can talk about bottle cover or chalkboard illustration or circular paper cut out. So if I say circular paper cut out now, I can say a circular paper cut out will be used as a teaching aid in the class. So I have to put that one there so that any person, anybody can just, I may decide not to go to the class and give my lesson note to somebody to go and take the class for me. And since my lesson note is my roadmap, that person will follow everything that is inside that lesson plan. So the next thing now is reference. Reference. How do you reference? I've said it's not that you just say Kalejaye, you just write the name anyhow. No, there is a format to follow. And the format is APA format. That is American Psychology Association format. We are now using APA 7. So if you want to use that now, so you have to list the name of all the author. Maybe Kalejaye, Kalejaye K.A., Ariba Book A.O., Adewale K.A., then you put in bracket the year they published the textbook. Maybe 2021. New General Mathematics. New General Mathematics. Evans Publisher, Ibadan. So if anybody now stumble at your lesson plan, I like the way this person prepared this lesson plan. Let me see the reference book this person used. Oh, he used New General Mathematics produced by Pearson. He used General Mathematics produced by this. He used General Mathematics produced by that. And the publisher is based in Ibadan. Okay. And the name of the author of the book are these. And that is the essence of reference book. So the next thing now is content. Now, if I may ask, what are those things will be in my content? Good. Meanings of fraction. That's the first thing. It has to go in line with my objective. Followed by example or types of fraction. Because I've said they must be able to identify types of fraction. So I must start from the proper fraction, improper fraction, and mixed fraction. Now let me move on to my step or my procedure. So I want to follow 5 steps in this class. But before following the 5 steps, I have to first of all do my introduction. Don't forget that my entry behavior, I said the students have been sharing things among themselves. I also said I have taught them how to divide before. So my introduction is going to be a question in line with my entry behavior. So I can say the teacher will ask the student how to share things among themselves or how they have been sharing things among themselves. So at that particular moment now, you can now bring your orange. I want to share this orange among these 3 people. How do I go about that? They say, you cut, and you cut it before them. And you will now tell them that today, our class is going to be fraction. Another thing you can say, if I cut this bread into 4 equal parts and take one, what did I have? The learner will now respond that, you can say, you now have 4 left, or so 3 left, because you have taken one, it remains 4. So in that wise, you have done your introduction. So introduction is not part of your step at all. Introduction is connecting with your entry behavior. Introduction is connecting with your entry behavior. So in your introduction is the icebreaker, is what we call an icebreaker. What you are going to use to get into the class, to arouse the interest of the student. That is the introduction. Then thereafter, after the introduction now, you can now come into the step 1. So the step 1 now, explain that a fraction show part of a whole. and student listen and observe sample fraction model. That's your step 1. Step 2, the teacher define numerator and denominator using board diagram, and the student will identify the numerator and the denominator in a given example. You can add just an example there. Step 3, the teacher demonstrate proper fraction using object, and students work in group to show proper fraction. You can see that it is student center. You are getting your student involved. It's going to be teachers' activities and learners' activity. So step 4 now, the teacher explain improper fraction with example, and the student convert improper fraction to mixed number, which is part of my objective. Step 5, the teacher introduce mixed fraction and show how they are written, and students write 3 mixed fraction from given improper fraction by the teacher. The two of them will work together. So once you have taken those steps and you have written those steps now, your step must go in line with your objective too. You can now see that the instructional objective is connecting with the content, is connecting with your step, and it must connect with your evaluation. Now, I've come to the evaluation now. You can now say, by the end of the lesson, or the teacher evaluate the lesson by asking the following question. The teacher evaluate the lesson by asking the following question. Number 1, define a fraction, which is your number 1 objective. Number 2, identify numerator and denominator, which is second objective. Number 3, give 2 examples of proper fraction, which is your third objective. Number 4, convert something, maybe 9/4 to a mixed fraction, which is your fourth objective. So your evaluation must go in line with your instructional objective. Now you come to assignment now. Don't forget that assignment is a reinforcement. It's something they will go and do at home. So we can now say, draw and shade diagram to represent 1/2. That one they can't do in the school because they don't have drawing book. So they have to go home and work on that. So ladies and gentlemen, that is a very simple and a typical example of a lesson plan and how you can plan it. Probably in the next video, I can pick also another topics in the heart to talk about that. If you are finding yourself here for the first time, you're welcome to this class, and this class is basically on lesson plan. Like I said, it's basically on lesson plan, and it's talking about how you as a teacher understand each component and how to use them effectively in a lesson plan. So I think by now you should now know the difference meaning that we have in some of the items contained in a lesson plan. So thank you. If you're finding yourself here for the first time, you can try to subscribe to this channel so that you get a notification when we have new video, and also like the video and also share the video with teachers. Together, we shall see the transformation we want in Nigerian class. So once again, I am Kayode Adewale. Thank you all.